Hi, Ron. Welcome to Movie Junk. How are you?
Isaiah, how you doing, buddy? I'm great, thanks.
I'm doing good. I'm super excited to have you on, Ron. I know
Yeah,
we've been working on
you do
this.
great. You do great work. You do great work with MovieJunk, man. We love it.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. I know the Sopranos fans know you well, but for the fans that aren't familiar with your work, we have Ron Castellano. Ron played Terry Doria, season 5, season 6 of The Sopranos. You were also in Law and Order, and also you're just recently in Netflix, The Irishman, alongside
Yeah, well,
Joe Pesci.
that's my smallest but proudest role.
Oh man, I noticed you right away, man. The second I saw you in that scene, I think it was
Yeah,
right after the Albert Anastasia hit. I was like, man, there he
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That just to be in a film with those guys is like the dream. It was fantastic. You know, one day you're just hanging out in your backyard. The next day you're talking to Scorsese and Pesci about a scene you're gonna do. It's like, what's going on? So it was like a dream.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Ron, you
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, you got 30 plus years in the business. Definitely want to pick your brain. I can't begin to say how much of an honor it is to have you on today.
Thank you, my brother. Honored to be here. I love it.
And Ron, if I'm not mistaken, you actually started your career. You actually had a promising career as a bodybuilder. Is that right?
Yeah, I was Mr. Garden State. I was Mr. Garden State. I was working out. Uh, I started working out in high school for football to get bigger, and then in college I joined the powerlifting. I played football in college, and I joined the powerlifting team. So in powerlifting, you really don't. I mean, you just eat whatever you want because you want to be strong. You know, and bodybuilding is the opposite. You have to care what you look like at night. So I was powerlifting, and I was, I don't know, 220. That was my weight class, 220. So a lot of my friends back home, I went to school in Pennsylvania. So my friends back home were bodybuilders. They were doing bodybuilding shows like, since they were teenagers. So I was about 20 years old or so. We were bouncing in nightclubs and things like that. And one of my friends says, "You should try, bodybuilding." So I said, "Well, okay. Well, what do I have to do?" He's like, "Well, you got to lose like 30 pounds." I'm like, what? I'm like, "What do you mean lose 30 pounds? I just got trying to get bigger, trying to get stronger." He says, "Well, just try and see. It's only 3 months of your life because that time you could, when you're 20 old, you could drop weight like that and get in shape quick." So I tried it. I loved it. My first show I came in second, and I loved it. I stuck with it, and then I kept competing, and I wound up winning the Mr. Garden State title.
Yeah, no, I know. I saw, some of your photos when you were younger, and you're still in shape. I mean, definitely you were in great shape.
Thank you.
Sopranos,
I try to keep it. Yeah. I was bigger in the Sopranos. I was more bulky.
yeah, because I know
I think that's one of the reasons why they got the part.
Yeah.
I remember when I walked on the set. Remember when I worked on the set the first day. James Gandolfini looked at me. He goes, "Oh, they finally got a big guy." So I was like, "All right, yeah, okay."
Yeah.
He was a great guy. He was the opposite of what his character was. Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I know. I mean, in season 6, there was the other bodybuilder that was hired as Tony's security guard, the guy that did the fighting. That also could have been a good role for you if you didn't join in season 5.
They auditioned me for that role after the first season, and I was confused. I was like, "Why are you?" So I even said to the casting, I said, "Why are they auditioning me for this role?" And she was to explain, like so if you look at some series, they have people play dual roles sometimes. You know what I mean? Like you'll see a person in an episode as this guy, and then the next episode is a different guy. And that didn't occur to me with the Sopranos. I'm like, well, you should. On the Sopranos, more like these guys are that's it. They don't have dual roles. But if you notice, a couple of guys did. But anyway, that kid was a better fit for that because he caught a beating from Tony, so that was better for him.
Oh man, yeah, no, definitely. I feel like it'd be a little bit harder for me to visualize you taking a beating. Just his character. I feel like it'd be a tough match. I know you mentioned that James Gandolfini was completely different than kind of his.
Opposite. He was the sweetest. He was the few times that I met him, the most sweetest guy. Big, huge bear, but the sweetest guy. Everybody else was like they didn't act; they were just themselves. So it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely a kind of a larger than life guy, and
Huge.
yeah, definitely. From everyone that we've interviewed, I've heard nothing but amazing things from James. Any stories that you could share from your time on set working with him? Anything that you might have learned from working with him?
Oh, definitely. I mean, And that was one of the good things when you go on, you're working with actors like that, and just watching them is better than taking like 50 acting classes. It's just how and I got to hand it to him because like we were talking one time about how he had every day had to be that aggressive and that angry and that had to build up. That's not easy to do. I mean, it looks easy maybe, but it's not. It's very difficult to get angry when you're pretending to be, but you got to be real. Yeah. And I would watch him like a couple of times. They were between scenes and they were getting ready for the next scene. He would just be getting ready for his scene. He was intense. He was very intense. I mean, you could tell by the show, but I didn't get a chance to sit down with him, one-on-one, but just being around the set, watching these guys, you learn a tremendous amount.
Yeah. So I know, I mean, how did you make the shift from bodybuilding to acting? So I know, after bodybuilding, I mean, I'm assuming you still obviously, worked out and kept in shape, but how did you get into to acting? Did you take any classes, or were there any kind of movies that inspired you to want to get in the business?
Well, when I was training for my shows, a guy I knew mentioned a friend of his just had back surgery and needed someone to help him get in shape. I said, all right. He introduces me to Frank Vincent. That was the guy. So I knew who Frank was because I saw Raging Bull, my favorite movie. This was around the late 80s. So I knew Frank from one or two films. There was another film, I was thinking it was called Wise, a comedy with Wise Guys, I think it was called. He was in that. And he was also Fast Easy Money with Rodney Dangerfield and Joe Pesci. So those films were kind of new. And believe it or not, I would see him very rarely, like around the area, like on the street somewhere or whatever, and I would recognize him because he lived in the same neighborhood. He was born in Massachusetts, grew up in Jersey City, but then he moved to Newark, New Jersey, where I'm from, and literally lived 5 blocks from me. So when I met him, I was very cool with him. I was like, how are you? He's like, you know who I am? I was like, yeah, I think I do. I was playing it cool. And I said, listen, you want to work out? I'll help you get in shape. Okay, went to the gym, and like the first day, we just hit it off. So because we're kind of from the same culture, the same like mold kind of thing, like old school guys. And it was a pleasure just to hanging around with him. So I would train him in the gym. And one day he just asked me, he said, you want to come with me on the set somewhere? So I would go to the movie sets. And he got me like a couple of extra roles. Like in Goodfellas, he got me an extra role. And I would go hang out with him and on sets. And I was actually with him in Goodfellas with his famous scene, get your time box. I mean, watching that with Pesci and De Niro, just amazing. What you just by watching these guys, what you learn.
So you were there for the Billy Bat scene?
I drove him there. That was like his little assistant bodyguard. Like, it was like his trainer, his chauffeur, that's what he liked. I liked it. He liked it. So it was a perfect fit.
Oh my goodness, man. So, and I'm sure this definitely might come off as a dumb question, but that famous scene where De Niro and Pesci are stomping on the Billy Bat's character, is that Frank Vincent in that scene, or is that a double that's getting beat?
Looks just like him, right?
Identical.
Yeah, that's Pete Bucosi. He's a stunt coordinator.
Oh wow,
fantastic. Yeah, look, and Pete was also in the trunk when they were stabbing him.
Oh, so that was him in the trunk.
That was his stunt double. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Frank was in the trunk for like when they opened it. I think you see him, but then when they start stabbing him, that was just stunt double. And Frank and I were sitting in the trailer, listening to them shoot him 100 times. And yeah, that was Pete. He's a good guy. He's also still a coordinator on Sopranos too.
Oh wow, that's amazing. And well, I don't know if this was coincidental, but you and Frank both joined the Sopranos during season 5.
That was just coincidence. Yeah, Frank didn't get me to help me with that. That was coincidence. That just happened to be. That just is a cherry on top of the ice cream. To be in the show and him be in the show. But what happened was eventually he had gotten a call from John Gallagher, who was the director, and he was filming a film called Street Hunter. Mm-hmm. So he wanted Frank to play the gangster. What else? So Frank says, "Hey, I got to talk to this director. You want to go for a ride? I'm driving him. said, I'll pick you up in an hour, whatever it was. So we're going there, and we're sitting in John Gallagher's living room in New York, and he's telling Frank about his role. You know, you're going to be a gangster, you're going to have 2 bodyguards. Then he looks at me, he says, "You an actor?" Now, at that time, I had done that a couple extras, and Frank convinced me to take a couple acting classes, so I did that. So he says, "You an actor?" And I says, "Not really." I said, "I did a couple extra roles." He said, "Well, you would be," because saw kind of how we were friends, and he says, "You would be great for one of his bodyguards." And I said, "Oh, wow," he gave me the part. So just like that, I mean, that's how lucky he got. So by getting that part in the film, because it was a Screen Actors Guild film, made me eligible to join the union. So then once I joined the union, Frank hooked me up with his agent, and then I just started going on auditions by myself. Yeah. So that's how it happened. I mean,
Yeah, and you joined the Sopranos. I mean, it was a little unique because you had joined it when it was already established, right? It's different from like the first season where, you know, as an actor, you don't really know quite what you're getting yourself into. Was there any added pressure to joining the show kind of, you know, at season 5, which in my opinion is my favorite season. I think it was the best season of the show, but any added pressure to joining an already established show with such a reputation?
I mean, you go into an audition and you just hope for the best. You don't know what they're looking, you know, at the time. You don't know what it could be. You have to a certain look. It just depends. So I go in there just trying to do my best. But I auditioned actually 3 different times for the show, and then I finally got the part of Terry. But you interested in that? You want to tell you about that?
Oh, please, please. Yeah, I'd like
Okay,
to hear about your process.
so so my agent says this Sopranos want to see you for a part. So I was like, wow. I mean, you know, you get that phone call. So I auditioned, and then you first go to audition, and if they want to see you again, they do it's a callback, and you go back and you audition. Well, first it was in Manhattan, then the callbacks were in Silver Cup in Queens, where they actually filmed the show. And then you're there with whoever. It could be a director. David Chase was there with a couple other producers and things. So I was there with 2 other guys, and we all looked different, you know. So and we all had the same part. They were just trying to pick who it was. So it was only one. The thing was this: it was one line, and then the guy gets shot. So it was like bittersweet because I was like, hey, listen, I can part great, but I get shot, which is not, you know, but still it would be a part. So the guy says his line and gets shot. So sometimes in auditions, they go off the script to just see what you're gonna do. They ad lib a line.
Yeah.
So the casting director that I first was with was reading, like the other person reads the other lines and as you audition. So I read my line, and then she goes, boom, boom, like I'm getting shot. I go, oh, Maron, you got me. And the whole room started to laugh. So it's good that you got to kind of leave a little impression however you can. So then I said, you know, I didn't get the part. So I said, okay, well, let's see who got it. You know, so I know because after your audition, they usually air the show maybe a month or 2 later.
Yeah.
You know. So I didn't see any parts that the line where I read, I didn't see anybody that said it. So I was like, I wonder if they used it or not. So then the next season, they called me in again. So my agent said, they want to see it for another part. So I went back in, and she goes, you know, we wanted to use you for that part, but we didn't have the part. We cut it out. She said, but we wanted to use you. I said, oh, wow. I said, fantastic. So they auditioned me again. This time it was for like a biker guy. Okay, so I'm saying to myself, I'm not the biker type, but you never know what they're looking for. They could be looking for a Guido biker guy. Who knows? So I didn't get that part either, but I did see who did get it, and it was like a Hell's Angel type guy. Yep. I said, okay, well, he fit the part better than I did. So I was like, maybe I'm never gonna get the part, but who knows? At least they saw me. It's always good to go read, that people can see you. You know what I mean? It's always good. Then I got the 3rd phone call. So I said to my agent, I said, they're torturing me now. They're torturing me. What do I do? So I went in, I read for Terry Doria, and it was the first one. Then they called me back, and it was David Chase, and Mike Figgis, the director. And I read it, and they gave me a little direction. And I left that audition. I was like, nah, I screwed that one up. I said, man. But I got the part. So that was fantastic. So my agent called and says, you got the part. It's going to be like a recurring character. And then, you know, you go from watching the show to going, like they have what's called a read through. It's on a Wednesday before they start filming the show. So all the characters that are in the episode are at the studio at a table, and they just read through the episode, you know? So I walked in, and like I said, you have to watch it. So you walk in and you see, you know, all the characters there, you know, Tony, Edie Falco. I was sitting next to Steve Buscemi. I was like, you think like, wow, do I belong here? But you're like, yeah, I belong here. Like they want you here and you're reading. So, but it's surreal at first because when you walk in, you're like, I'm gonna, you know, at the table with all these fantastic actors, and it's just a great feeling that you feel like you've accomplished something in acting, that you got to be on that show, or any part you get is accomplishment, you know?
Yeah, I mean that definitely worked out in your favor because that biker role, I do remember that role specifically. It was Tony's security
Really?
guard at the strip club, and he was there during that scene with Christopher. Him and Tony Saragusa had some scenes together, so I think
That's
it
right,
worked
Tony
out in
Soprano.
your favor. It worked out in your favor because your character ended up being quite
I love Terry.
memorable.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love Terry. Terry was a great character. So like I said, you always just do. You never know what they're looking for. You just go do what you do, and you know that's wherever it lands, it lands. But yeah, it worked out. So I'm thinking, you know, am I ever gonna get a job with the show? And as luck would have it, I got the best of the three.
and your first scene was that scene. I think it was on the bridge where you and Benny were chasing the security guard, right?
Well, the first scene was when we were on the docks with the investors.
Yeah.
It opens the episode. It opens the episode with me and I forget the other actor's name, but we're sitting on the docks, and I call up. I said the Vespers ain't showing up. I
Yeah.
said we gotta wait. So we're waiting. Yeah. And then we go back, and then Tony says, go find out what happened to him.
Yeah.
That's when Benny and I go back and beat up the security guard. That poor guy was running around the bridge all night.
Yeah, man. You guys eventually gave him a beating, obviously because Phil had already, heisted the load, or New York had already taken the load.
And that was excuse me, but that was the scene that I read for on the audition on the dock on the bridge where
And I know there's, your scene, because obviously we know what happens to the Vito character. He ends up, being identified as being gay, and he kind of goes on the run. And you have that scene where you guys go to kind of shake him down when he tries to come back.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a rumor you went viral for a little bit, but there's a rumor on the internet that car actually ran over your foot. So we got you here. We can finally address this. Did you actually get run over? Because you're seen limping on there.
The car never touched me, but everyone there, and I'll explain to you, but everybody there ran over to me and said, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" And I had to try to convince them, like, no, the car didn't hit me. What happened was all of us were down the driveway, and everybody up was on the drive. All the crew and the cameras were on the top of the driveway. So, they had to film Vito driving out, us down there. So director, Tim Van Patten, right, is the director.
Yeah.
He came down, he's talking to us, and he looked at me, he goes, listen, pretend the car hit you. Nobody heard that but me, right? So I said, all right, fine. So that's what I did. I pretend the car hit me. No one knew that he told me that, right? Because all the rehearsals were not that way. So I remember I just went back to football about getting hit in football. So I started acting like I was hit football and I was limping. So then after they say cut, the medic on the set ran down to me. She goes, all right, let me see your leg, all right? And I was like, what do you know? She goes, I said, oh, no. I said, the director. She goes, no, come on. Like, they were convinced that the car hit.
It looked like
so it took me like 10 minutes for them. Like, so I had to walk normal. I'm like, no, look, I'm not hurt. So yeah, everybody thought the car hit me. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had that famous scene with Vito where you guys meet at the market, and you want to borrow some money for child support, and so your character's known for
Nicole, my balls, Nicole,
yeah. Actually, since we got you on, can we get you to say that line again that you gave Vito? if you can remember it.
Well, yeah, I can remember, but I'm going to start with. I'm looking at. I was wondering if you could float me $20K. Nicole choking my balls in his child support. I'm looking at 6 months of counting. I wonder if you could float me $2 at 2 points. He wants two. I knew I wasn't going to pay him back, so I don't care. He said 2.5. I said, yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah, he wanted
But I
to.
tried to pay it off too. I said, maybe now's not a good time for you. I said, like, I really didn't want it. So he said, no, I'll give it to you. I said, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Then everybody wants to know, everybody asking me, when we had Sopranos con in East Rutherford a couple years back, everybody was asking me, hey, did you tell Phil? Did you tell Phil where the Vito was? I said, of course. What do you think? Of course I told Phil where the Vito was.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that was when I first watched the show. I was like, it had to have been your character to let Vito or to let Phil know because Phil was finding out information in real time.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I
even
got paid
before
from
Tony.
Phil too.
Yeah, because you figure Vito would reach out to members of his crew, right, just to kind of keep things afloat. So it would make sense that that he would let someone like you know that information and then have that slip to Phil.
That's right. So everybody was happy except for Vito.
So what do you think happened to your characters? We didn't see you in 6B. So what do you think
Yeah.
ultimately happened to do you think your character went to jail or did Phil have you
Well,
left
I don't.
after?
Well, I didn't give Nicole the money that I needed. That was a bullshit story. So, but I got in trouble on the streets, and I wound up going to the camp for a year. So that's where what happened to me.
Awesome, awesome. And you mentioned Tim Van Patten. Obviously, I think he's directed the most episodes on.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
And he's
He's
also.
from the White Shadow. Remember the show, The White Shadow?
Yep, yep, yep,
Yeah, he
yep.
was on. Yeah.
He's also slated to direct. Well, he directed the latest Terminator movie, and also, or I think it was Terminator Genesis. But he's also slated to direct The Many Saints of Newark.
Did he direct it?
Or he's slated to direct it. Yeah, so he directed it. What are your thoughts? Have you seen the latest trailer of The Many
Yeah, I
Saints?
saw the trailer.
What are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't bet against David Chase. I mean, everything he does is phenomenal. So I'm gonna have to say that it'll probably be pretty good. Just the fact that if you're a Sopranos fan, you're gonna like it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where you have to see the series. The guy has to understand it to get a good. But you know, with the cast that they have and the storyline, and I'm sure it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. And what do you think of the casting of Michael Gandolfini playing a young Tony?
But that was genius. I thought that was. I mean, it looks just like him. I mean, I don't think anybody else could have done it. You know, it's fantastic. It's a tribute to the whole series. You know, having his son play him.
Yeah.
I think that was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it would be really hard for David Chase to put anybody else in that role. I think there'd be a lot of people debating, hey, this doesn't look or act like Tony. But I mean, if you listen to, and we still have to see the movie, obviously, but if you hear kind of his mannerisms and the way he looks,
I mean,
awesome.
it's the closest thing you got, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And also, I mean, you've worked with some other heavy hitters as well too. I mean, you've worked with Samuel L. Jackson a few times as well too. If I'm not mistaken, you were also in that, and you were also in the Gus Faraci story, and I think so. What's it like? I mean, just me. I'm a huge fan of Samuel L. I mean, what's it like, kind of working with Samuel L. Jackson?
He's another intense actor. I mean, I'm sorry.
Who was also in Goodfellas.
He was also in Goodfellas, right? Yeah, we have a little bit of film history with Sam, right?
Yeah.
and he was also on. He also worked on. I was on the set with Frank in Do the Right Thing. He was also in that. As a
3
DJ.
films.
What's that?
That's 3 films where you've worked with him on.
Well, I wasn't in Do the Right Thing, but I was with Frank on the set, and Samuel L. Jackson was in that film too. I worked the closest with him was in Shaft when he comes to my mother's house looking for my sister, and we tell him, get lost, get out of here. And he's with Vanessa Williams, and it's just great working with him. And John Singleton, he's the director. I mean, it's just such a great thing to work with on films like that with with actors like that you could just look at and learn. And I love it. You know, I love it. And you know, a lot of people when you not that they, but they don't realize how much intricacies go into it. You know, 1 minute on the film, 1 minute on the screen is like a week's worth of work. You know, on a film, it's very intricate. It's very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Is there anyone, Ron, that you haven't worked with yet that you're still hoping you can work with one day? I mean, you've been directed by Scorsese already, but is there anyone that you haven't worked with that you're still kind of rooting for to work with someday?
I love working. I just love working on a film, no matter who's in it or what it's. You know, I love it all. So anybody that is working on a film, I love it. It's just something. It's something you wish I could. Like I wish I could get up every day and go do it. You know. But
Yeah. And another question that I love asking, the folks that we interview are kind of like, what are some of the shows that you guys are binge watching? What are the actors watching these days? Are there any shows or movies that you've seen recently?
I'm trying to think. Well, what was the one we were? The Karate Kid. I watched that one.
You watch Cobra Kai?
Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai.
Oh, nice.
Because I like the Karate Kid, and then somebody told me about the Cobra Kai because I watch Netflix a little bit, but not too much. So, somebody told me about that one, and I couldn't stop watching. I just kept it on for like 2 days straight. I watched like 3 seasons in 2 days.
Oh man, we got to get you on Cobra Kai. I want to see you and Macho, you and Daniel going at it. That'd be pretty good. Or you can be his cousin that visits him from the East Coast.
He's actually in the original film, they say he's from Newark.
Yep, he's from Jersey. Yeah,
from Newark, New Jersey.
Oh man, well, I just read that I think the creators got a 4-year extension, so we're going to be getting some additional seasons and also some spin-offs. So yeah, man,
They really did a great job with that. I mean, it was cool to see what happened to the characters, how the storylines. It was just I loved it. It was really good.
So I mean, since we're talking about Cobra Kai, are you team Cobra Kai or team Miyagi-Do?
I'm gonna have to go with the Miyagi-Do.
The original, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the originals. So yeah, nice, man. And then just lastly, Ron, do you mind sharing, are there any upcoming projects that we should be stay tuned for? Are you anything that you can share with the fans?
Well, you should check out the Sopranos. They have a virtual on and meet the actors, and they do shout outs and things like that. And doing some auditions. And if I get a job, they'll be the first one to know.
Awesome, perfect. So fans can reach out to you on virtual cons for virtual shout outs, huh?
Yeah, or they can either go to Ron Castellano 1, send me a message if they want to know anything about the show. I get some fans that they message me questions about the show. I usually answer all of them.
Perfect. Yeah, no, we'll share that with the fans, and yeah, definitely. I mean, you heard it here. If you want a Terry Doria shout out, feel free to reach out to Ron. Ron, I can pick your brain all day. I want to save some more for when we do this again for round 2, but I'm really excited to learn, kind of more about some of these, and for you to put to rest, some of these rumors about your character. And yeah, definitely was just excited to hear about your journey, your close relationship with Frank, and also getting to work with some memorable actors over your career. I can't wait to see some of your upcoming projects soon.
My pleasure, Zay. My pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, brother. Be good.